And then we can pause it and talk after.
All right, welcome to another episode of Let's Go Brown and Green. Today on the show we have Joe, and Joe's a special guest from the Histamine Deception, that's his YouTube channel, and he is dedicating his YouTube channel and knowledge to helping other people who believe they've got a histamine intolerance or are suffering from a thing called TMS, Tension Myositis Syndrome. Is that correct, Joe?
Yeah, myositis.
Myositis. Yeah. So, Joe, tell us about your story, and because there was a few things in your video that you put up on a group, and I said I need to talk to this guy because this could be what I'm going through.
Yeah, absolutely. Mine all started, and this is basically going to be a story about healing from very weird ailments, afflictions like food allergies, back pain, neck pain, stomach problems, constipation, diarrhea, leg pain, insomnia, anxiety, tinnitus, acid reflux. I mean, there's just hundreds of these ailments. Anything a doctor cannot figure out is usually what is this new TMS thing. And TMS means Tension Myositis Syndrome. And what happened is basically back about 5 years ago, I just started, I want to be careful describing my symptoms because what happens with TMS is people are liable to get it. And just by describing it, and that's the thing with TMS, it thrives on what it can buy you in your brain. So basically, years ago, I just started itching, and that kind of progressed through my entire body to the point where a year later, I was like suicidal itching. It was day and night. I couldn't sleep, couldn't do anything. Are you still there? Did I lose you? Are you there? Hello? Hello?
Yeah. Yeah, so you're suicidal and itching.
Oh, yeah. I mean, just terrible itching. And I went to a bunch of doctors and they just couldn't figure it out. And so I started Googling, why am I itching everywhere? And I couldn't sleep day or night. It was that bad. And I came across, something in your foods. It must be the foods. A lot of people are calling this thing called histamine intolerance. It's all this itching and, tinnitus and why would foods cause tinnitus? But they do in these people with histamine intolerance. Histamine intolerance, it covers all these weird things foods are doing, gastro problems, weird face flushing, tooth pain, hundreds of these ailments from histamine intolerance. So they give you a list of foods to follow. And sure enough, I got rid of a couple foods on this histamine list and I felt better for like a week. And I was like, I definitely have this histamine intolerance because I feel great. I stopped itching and things were good. A couple weeks, not a couple weeks, but a couple days go by, I start itching again. I look at this chart for offending foods and I get rid of a couple more and I get rid of a couple more. And this just progressed over the next year. Sure enough, I'd get better and then worse, better than worse. And then if I try to add a food back, an offending food, it got way worse to the point I'm bleeding, open sores all over my body, head to toe, covered in these sores from eating. Right when I ate the foods, it was instantaneous, within a minute. So it was the foods. My brain tied on that it was the foods. Now I couldn't add them back. My whole family's saying, eat, you got to eat, you're going to die, And I'm like, I cannot every time I add these foods. And so I'm now down to eating chicken and rice. And that was it down to chicken and rice and a couple other foods, for a couple years. And then I'm at work one day and I get this massive explosion in my head, and all of a sudden I'm shaking everywhere, sweating, and now I've got this migraine that will not go away. And that migraine stayed with me every day for 14 months straight, day or night, never went away. And then I tied that to my last foods that I noticed when I was eating certain foods. And I won't say what foods because people are liable. Your brain will latch onto this stuff. But I was eating certain foods and my migraine would come on within a minute.
I'll tell you the foods, man. Spinach.
Oh, yeah. Spinach for you?
Oh, man. For some reason, man, I was like, what the hell, this spinach? And it turns out it's everyone's number one.
Yeah.
Did you
and
have
it's
it?
Yeah, it's totally TMS. No, I don't. It was never spinach. It was other foods, but I won't tell you because your brain will progress to those.
That's the thing. When I was watching your video, I said, "Oh man, I can't watch this now. I reckon I'm gonna catch his disease by watching it."
Yeah, a lot of talk about that in the community. Ozanich says, he don't want to hear about your stuff, liable he to catch it. The thing is, I actually caught, hearing about your light sensitivity. I thought it was in, I won't even say, but in a different part of your body, and that started happening to me for like 2 days. So
yeah,
you catch it, but I easily defeated it because I know it's TMS, so it went away very quickly.
That's where I'm at now. I think I know it's TMS, and especially these other things, because now I am more sensitive to other medicines and things like that too, which I wasn't.
Yeah,
and it's yeah, man. But I just wish I could get out of it. Like,
you will.
It really is TMS.
It really
I have
is.
been out of it a month ago. So I'll tell you my brief story. So I've never told anyone this, but yeah, February. I've told about 10 people on the planet just because it's simply unbelievable.
Right.
Okay, so about February 2020, COVID came along. Barely anyone in Australia had it. I got it. I gave it to my mate, who he was like 50. He went to hospital, nearly died from it, the initial infection. He gave it to his ex-wife or something. She ended up in hospital. She was around the same age. She nearly died with it. I just went through. It was like a hectic flu thing, and it was hectic, but it wasn't anywhere like life-endangering for me or anything. And then I was like, when am I getting better? Because it went on for like probably 10 days. And then finally it started to calm down. I was like, oh, I'm getting better. And then I started having these stroke things. Like for 6 months straight, my gut was screwed. Every night I was having these stroke, whether they were hemiplegic migraines, which mimics a stroke, or not a stroke, but a TIA. I'd have foot drop for a week. I'd have metal tongue. So I'd be looking at my computer doing work, and then I remember just looking at my computer, not understanding anything that I'm looking at. I'm trying to do something, and my mouse couldn't get to. I'm like, I know what to do, but so I was like having TIAs or something. And then I read that COVID was causing blood clots in young people and all this stuff. But what can you do about it? Nothing. You can't even go to a doctor or anything in 2020 in Australia because of just what was happening.
Yeah.
Everyone was scared of it, and Australia was locked down for 2 years or whatever. So
worst time to get TMS is when you can't see a doctor.
Yeah. So
I
then
hear you.
Yeah, so a few months later, and I'm starting to get better or whatever, I went out to the Sunday markets and I bought this cheap. Do you have the shop Aldi over there? ALDI?
No.
The big German shop. Anyway, it's in Europe. Anyway, I bought the sunscreen from Aldi, and I used it, and I remember putting it on my face, and just this burning acid feeling thing. I kept applying more, and it turned out that's what was burning me. And that I then went home and Googled, I'm like, what could that be? And then I looked up the reviews of this sunscreen that did it to like 90% of people that use it should see the reviews. It's just everyone saying I went to hospital, burnt me, all this stuff. And then from then on, light started going crazy with me. I'd be in bed, laying on my back, reading my phone overnight just before I went to bed. And the downlight in my room would then start looking at me, like fucking looking at my right eye, like connecting like a magnet, like light from the LED light in my room, my downlight, making a magnetic connection to my eye or something. I was like, what the hell is this? And then more and more I'd be going out driving and I'd get all this burning pain on my face, like similar to what I was getting at the markets that day. And yeah, so then it was on till it finally was taking antibiotics and stuff or something, and whether that had something to do with it. And then one day I drove to, it started to get worse and worse. I'm telling the doctor, man, I might not be able to come and see you soon. It's that bad. And he's like, I know it sounds like bullshit to you. And he just bursts out laughing. Are you sure you're not making this up? I'm like, mate, I'm not, mate. Because my face was spotless. That's the thing.
Right.
My face was spotless. And the amount of time I spent looking in the mirror trying to see if I could see anything that was burning was crazy. So then then this event came where it just got that bad, where I said, it's so bad, man. I remember running to my letterbox, which is 5 meters from my front door and back, going inside and just burning for hours. And I was like, this is not possible. I'm not finding it in any medical literature anywhere. Telling dermatologists, they're just like, oh, you got this. And I'm like, what? No, man, my life's so bad. Like, this is not that. They don't even mark up. And he's like looking for a little blemish. Yeah, you do here. I'm like, yeah, everyone's got little patches of that. Like, I've had that forever. Anyway, so then it got to the point where I drove into town one night, and I remember driving in the high beams, like went crazy at me in the car coming towards me. I drove, and I thought, what the hell was that? And then, did that just burn me? And anyway, I got to the supermarket. I'm in the supermarket, and I'm just getting smoked by the big lights in there, to the point where I was nearly fainting. That's what I want to ask you about. How physical can these symptoms get? Because it still might not be this, where I was nearly fainting and passing out and sweating. I was sweating under these lights, and I had to get the hell out of there.
Yeah, I've been soaked.
I shoplifted. I shoplifted, man. Like, I just had to leave this shop with all the food. Like, I just ran in the car, went home, and went, what the hell is this? And then as I went home and turned on my phone in the dark house, my phone was then a flamethrower to me.
Yeah.
And in this last few days leading up to it, I got in contact with a lady called Anna Lindsay. She was the only one I found on the internet that said that she had the same similar thing to me, and we organised to have a phone appointment. And in her last email, she goes, Daniel, can you still use phones? And I'm like, what are you talking about? Can I still use phones and computers? And then I said, yeah, what? And then I read more of her story, and she couldn't even use this. And within about 2 days of her sending that email, it happened to me.
Dude, listen, just stop right there. That's proof. That's proof it's TMS, because it infects you, okay? Your brain's doing it. Like, that's to you, negate anything you think that this is actually something wrong with you just from that alone. Because I was going to tell you, the biggest thing is do not connect with other people that have this. Okay, when I connected with other histamine people, I got worse, because then I got what they got, and then it got worse. They're like, well, I have this pain, and then I got it from histamine. So
my question is, the thing that I wasn't even thinking about me even getting that from that email, and it wasn't even registering as a possibility that, that's you, that's not me, but I want to talk about being locked in the dark. But my brain, my other part of the brain just grabs that and goes, no, I'm giving this to you.
Here's it. It works. Your brain works totally independently of you. I mean, a lot of people don't know that. You're totally
That's what
different.
I've learned.
Yeah, your brain does whatever it's want. It controls the whole body. You're blinking, you're breathing, goosebumps that you get. Like, you can't control. You think you have control of it, but your brain, I mean, from the moment you were a single cell to the size you are now, you had no control over any growth or anything in your body. Your brain did it all. And your brain also works completely independently. Sigmund Freud said, there's somebody in us we do not know. And we don't. It's your brain is doing this completely to you for emotional reasons. Some deep-seated fear, right? When COVID hit, all these people got this, all this long COVID from fear. So one key to this is like, it's TMS. Now we can 100% say it is, because when you heard another symptom, you caught it. And that's what TMS is. When you hear it, you catch it. When I heard about your light thing, it started happening to me, but I laughed it off. That's the thing, is you have to laugh it off and then go back to your brain and say, no, this is untrue. I'm going to view my computer. I'm going to view my phone. Until this goes away, I'm not going to fear it. And you put your phone up to you and you just take it until your brain finally will untrigger. And no, once you have to sell it to your brain that you don't believe it. That's the trick to this. And in a minute you truly don't believe it, the brain gives up. But the brain knows when you believe it, because it's with you, right? Your brain is you. So the brain knows if it can keep selling it to you, because as soon as you start looking at the phone and you start fearing it again and you give up or whatever, the brain's like, aha, I sold it to him again, right? That's how the trick is. So your brain lives inside of you, right? So it knows your thoughts, right? It's independently of you. So it's going to know when you're going to give up. But as soon as it knows that, wow, he really thinks this is TMS. All right, he knows it's TMS. He knows that this burning pain is going to go away eventually. All right, we're going to give this up. And what we're going to do, we're going to let him have this back, but we're going to give him something else. That's the trick. That's called symptom imperative. Sarno writes about it. So as soon as people are done with their back pain, neck pain, histamine pain, as soon as I defeated my histamine by doing what I told you, I ate the foods. It took me I ate the foods I won in one day. It took me 6 months of working with a coach. Like I'm working with you kind of like a coach, like talking to you. I mean, this is our first meeting, but I met with a guy like this every 2 weeks for a year and a half. And it took 6 months to defeat the foods. And then I got another TMS after that, which they call, you always get them. It's called symptom imperative. It was neck pain. So debilitating, I couldn't move, right? And I work on a computer, and now I couldn't move my neck. But, the TMS wants you to go into a doctor and get a scan, and then I'm going to have a herniated disc, because the brain will herniate in its own disc. It will self-herniate, right? Or it'll take an old herniation, which I have from CrossFit, 8 years ago.
And then just make you believe that that's it.
Which is still there. So when you go get an MRI, you get a scan, you got an old herniation. Yeah, and the brain's using it. And then you're like, I definitely have it. So it's so hard to unbelieve a herniation. That's why people are so crippled from herniations. But so many people healed doing TMS work from these crippling herniations. They don't even need to go through surgery anymore. There's been many surgeons who have quit back surgery because they've had TMS back pain themselves, and they have quit surgery because they healed. And now they're TMS coaches. They quit their $500,000 a year practices just to be TMS coaches. Now,
man, if I was a doctor and I knew this, I would dead set stop.
Yeah, my doctor quit being a doctor to do TMS work.
Because it's just so mind-blowing.
Yep, and they're ridiculed. All their peers have shunned him.
Yeah, they call him quacks and that.
Yeah, they shunned him, but he's really healing thousands of people. No quack work, just by telling you what I'm telling you.
But the thing is, there's just not enough proof for it. It's like acupuncture. It's the same thing. It's like, it works to people that know it works. How it works, no one knows. So
nobody knows. It's like it's going to take a mind shift in the entire community to know that emotions cause this, suppressed emotions, where these emotions, that some trauma happens, it gets suppressed by the brain into the subconscious, okay? It gets suppressed so deep into the subconscious, you don't even know it's there because it's suppressed. And then the brain brings you pain, so every time something, a TMS, a back pain, neck pain, histamine thing happens, think about what was going on in your life when it happened.
Well, the only other thing happened was my baby went overseas. My 9-month-old baby went overseas to Japan with a mum. And because of Australia, locked us out for 6 months, man. It just went ongoing. So I didn't get to see him for his whole life pretty much again.
And that causes anger, right? And the biggest thing with...
I don't think I got angry. I was just like... And I wasn't honest with, I didn't know I loved him like I did. That's another thing. So I first worked out, because I was like, yeah, go. It'll be good that you get to see Japan, and he gets to see his grandparents and family from Japan, and I'll be right. I'll just tell myself I'll be right. But I thought I'd be right. But
Yeah.
2-3 weeks later, I just remember walking around and just instantly breaking down into tears. I couldn't control for 10 seconds, 20 seconds at a time because I missed him.
Yeah.
And then that just, and apparently that's all related to all this mast cell activation.
It's
bullshit.
funny that everybody like comes across my story. They believe, it's hard to believe it until you go through it yourself. The people that actually believe it are the people going through it. Because when I say trigger points, like when I say things in my story, like, hey, it's emotional trauma, something happened in your life during this period, everybody has your story. Everybody says, yes, this happened. So then they start really listening after that, because I can pretty much tell people their life, like what's going on, right? And then when they hear that, that's how it got me. Somebody told me their story, and I was like, you got to be kidding me. This is totally me. I had a big trauma when I got married, that my wife was $60,000 in debt and didn't tell me. And it caused me so much anger. Like, people always say, well, I'm not an angry person. Well, exactly. That's what TMS is. It swallows into your subconscious so deep, it comes out as pain. You don't even see the ice. It's a tip of the iceberg that comes out, but it's the iceberg in your subconscious that's giving you the pain. That's why it's swallowed. You don't see it. You don't even know a lot of times what it is. It's buried so deep, you can only think about what it is. And one key to defeating a lot of it, to getting over it, is to think deeply about what it could be, and then bring those emotions of your kid leaving, of the fear of COVID. You start actively thinking about, man, I'm angry about that. Or, man, I'm so deeply sad about that trauma. You think about it. You bring it to your consciousness. And that's what TMS, it doesn't want to come to consciousness. It's buried. Your brain believes it hurts you so much, it buries it, and then it brings you pain to think about the pain instead of the emotional trauma. It feels like the pain is easier to give you. It's a coping mechanism of your brain. It's actually your brain thinks it's helping you by giving you this pain so you won't think about it. Now, I got over this 60 grand in debt because we paid it off, but my pain persisted. So you get over these emotions. So Sarno treated somebody who was abused when she was 4 years old, sexually abused, and she repressed it and didn't realize it. And she became crippled with back pain for 20 years. She was in a wheelchair. She didn't even know that's why until it burst through in one of Sarno's meetings. And Sarno didn't even know about TMS until this emotion. He started asking her about things. And this thought, this memory when she was 4 or 5 came up. It burst through. She fell onto the floor, trembling, shaking in agony. And all of a sudden she could walk with no pain. And she didn't even realize her dad did this to her until this moment. And so that's when Sarno got an epiphany that a lot of his patients were suffering from this. Now, he never got a breakthrough like this again, but it gave him the epiphany where he quit being a regular MD and just treated what he coined TMS. And he wrote all the books called Healing Back Pain. Then he labeled it Tension Myositis Syndrome, which he thought was in the muscles only. Then he got further insight and wrote the mind-body prescription, because he started seeing it was more than back pain. And he wanted to rename it from tension myositis because he found migraines and all these stomach pains. He wanted to rename it, but he didn't because he already coined the term. And then he wrote further books, and then he died at 94. And he was an outcast. He also, when he died, they did if you guys go on YouTube, go and watch. I think it's $10. It's a shame it's $10. It should be free, but it's called All The Rage. They did a big show on Sarno called All The Rage when he died, and he healed. Do you know Howard Stern?
Yeah. I'm familiar with what he did.
Yeah.
Howard Stern, or he reckons he saved him.
Yeah, he healed Howard Stern, Rosie O'Donnell's sidekick. She was in a wheelchair. just by telling you what I'm telling you now, they all had these emotional traumas. They all got over it. So one, even though I got over my emotional trauma, and I'm sure you did too, to actively think about it brings it out. Two, your brain will still perpetually keep you in this until you defeat it to come out. Okay, so you have to defeat it by standing up to the pain. It took me 6 months eating little foods every day until finally one day I'm like, screw it. I just went and got a Big Mac from McDonald's. I ate the offending food. My brain, I felt it about to go nuts. And I mean, I'd be bleeding everywhere, right? After eating this stuff. And I just said, bring it. I'm sick of this. I got so mad knowing this was TMS. I ate all the foods and it finally went away. That day, it was defeated that day, but it took not little bites. I ate little bites for 6 months and I was bleeding everywhere until I just went and said, I know that I'm sick of this. So that's what I tell people, stand up to it.
So my question there is, because that was last year, and then like I said, I had a when we had the chat and it finally came around, she goes, oh, you know what? It's apparently high histamine foods does it, and then I said, oh really? And then she's like, yeah, some people do better if they take antihistamines and stuff like that. And I'm like, oh, I might have one laying around. So when I got off the phone from her, I took the tiniest bit of antihistamine because I was so scared of everything doing stuff to me.
The fear, the brain thrives on it,
Took the tiniest nibble of it, and within like 2 minutes, I started, like, I remember sitting down, my ears started ringing.
And I'll interrupt real quick, but you know why that happened? Because you were fearing it, and the brain latched onto that. When you fear it, like, it knows it's going to get ready to give you something, because fear is a danger signal. So you're already feeding your brain danger signals by your own thoughts. So when you ate it, it of course gave you danger, pain, right? Pain is a danger signal.
Well,
so your brain's stuck in it.
Much more of a pain thing. It was like, and then like something happened and I could feel my like brain twist and all the cogs in there just go back to normal. And I remember saying to my friend who was sitting a few meters away, I said, and he was on his laptop, and I said, mate, bring your computer here. I think light looks different now. And then suddenly I could use his laptop. Next morning, me and him are out having breakfast at like 8 a.m. at the cafe as if it was nothing, in full light. And that was weird. And then over 6 months, it started to come back more and more. But now this time around, I now get like really bad, like rash on my face and very physical.
Yeah.
Which is that part of it? Like physical?
Oh yeah, I was bleeding.
That's what I'm asking. Are you bleeding because you're scratching these things that don't exist, or was your body fucking your skin up?
No, I'd have these boils come out of my skin. Blisters where I could pop them and pus would come out. They could all see it. The dermatologist saw it. They didn't know what was going on, and they'd be so painful, and I get 30 of them on my scalp. And now I don't get any. I don't get any now because I defeated it by eating the foods. Once my brain knew it wasn't the foods, they went away completely. And I had them for years.
So this is 100 billion% what I've got.
Yeah, no doubt.
I thought it was a few months ago when I come across it, and I was like, the high histamine food. I don't know why and how that's connected to it. And then also the COVID thing. And
because these people with histamine, all these various long COVID things, they Google it and they find it's because if you go to these histamine forums, there are 10,000 afflictions people have from histamine foods. And the thing is, it's not the foods.
I reckon it is, man, because I noticed that spinach in one of my medicines I take, which is just a whey protein.
Yeah.
Those things were before I even knew the burning was hectic. Like,
it's real. You know. I mean, it is a real reaction. Your brain is really reacting to that food. It is 100% reacting to it, but only because it can. It is a real. Your brain's not making it up. You're not. Oh, this
Yeah,
is
but
like
I don't know why it's not reacting to high oil foods or
yeah,
high
exact because
carb
it.
food.
Yeah, because
This is a
it could.
histamine disease.
Yeah, it could exactly. I mean, if it's histamine, some people. It's funny. It's if it's histamine intolerance. You look at these people, what they can eat. People are like, well, I can eat eggs. Well, eggs are high histamine. How can you eat eggs? Well, I can eat olive oil. How can you do that? That's high histamine. So it's obviously not histamine. They're like, well, some people can eat some foods and some people can't. No, it's either if you have histamine intolerance, you can't eat any foods but chicken and rice, or you don't have it, period, right? Because that's it. I mean, histamine does not regulate the things people does. My doctor was like, look, histamine just regulates your sleep, you know?
Hmm.
And I'll tell you what, the reason why my brain latched onto foods, I had a legitimate, it was so hard for me to unbelieve this because I took Benadryl for 10 years straight, every day and night, or every night, because I took it unbeknownst to me in a sleep medication. So I took it for 10 years in a sleep medication. And when I got,
Awesome.
yeah, when I got married, I had, my wife's like, hey, this got Benadryl in it. You shouldn't take this. And I was like, it does. I'm like, oh, I'm going to stop taking it. So I stopped taking it. Now, what is Benadryl? An antihistamine, right?
A
So,
hectic one.
yeah. And so what happens is when I quit, I did start itching from it, right? So my brain, and I was going through all this anger then, and my brain took that itching, which was a couple days of itching from, the backlash of the histamine thing, and it progressed it for the next 5 years until the most demonic itching you can imagine, right? And so my brain had something I could believe. I thought I damaged my histamines permanently. I went back to Benadryl like 10 times, so much so I couldn't even take Benadryl. I was so allergic to it. Like the minute I tried, that's why I was like, man, you probably reacted to it. Well, the minute I tried it, I'd be breaking out in hives and itching everywhere from a tablet of antihistamines.
That's supposed to negate that.
Yeah. And so when I was telling Dr. Howard, I said, man, I can't get these foods back because I actually damaged my histamines from Benadryl. And he's telling me, no, you didn't. And I couldn't, it's a medical doctor. And he's like, Joe, there's no way. He's like, you bounced back. He goes, there's hundreds of people that were addicted to Benadryl and they're off of it and they don't itch. And I was like, dude. And so that was the block for me. The brain, that was the believable moment where the brain was like, it made me believe it because I had a believable thing. Just like I wanted to go back to my notes when you're telling me, when you put that stuff on your face, it did burn you. It did. Just like the histamine, when I quit, it made me itch. But the brain took that momentary reaction, which was momentary, and it says, I can use this, and it prolonged it. Just like when people have TMS and they throw a disc out, the brain takes that, remembers it, that it caused you fear and preoccupation, and it uses it for the rest of your life. So you're cured from this burning, but your brain is just using it now because it had it.
That's what I gathered, yeah. But the thing is, if I seriously went outside and drove 15 minutes up the road, got out of my car there and then came back, I would dead set die of this burning face thing.
That's what you would think, right? My brain.
I've been out a couple of times in Thailand. I was over in Thailand. I had a big holiday in Europe, and the whole time I was indoors the whole time because I couldn't. But my face went crazy, man. I had to use this special cream it's like a steroid cream to bring it back to normal. I guarantee, man, like same as you, if your boils went out of control too much.
I was on steroids. I was on steroids for a year straight, prednisone.
That's what I mean. If you weren't on that, you get a big infection, and you would have been on antibiotics as well, I'd imagine.
Well, I was on it just because I thought I couldn't eat, and that's all they could give me was prednisone. And it helped. I could eat on prednisone a little bit, but it was all placebo. It was all placebo. Like if you read those books, Steve Ozanich has a good book called Dr. Sarno's Top 10 Healing Discoveries. It's really small. It's only like 20 pages, but it's brilliant. It is brilliant. Dr. Sarno Top 10 Healing Discoveries by Steve Ozanich. And in that, he talks a lot about placebo studies. If you read the placebo studies, all you have is a case of placebo. And there's tens of thousands of placebo studies. People take a migraine medication, they're better. People, and it was actually sugar water, you know, and it was just crazy, these placebo studies. So,
because I remember my mate telling me about a year ago, he goes, people get better when they want to get better. If they believe they get better. I'm like, what are you talking about?
You'll get better when you
want to get better. I was like,
you'll get better when you absolutely will believe 100% it's TMS. Like when you believe it's definitely TMS, which I suggest you do this. Write down those moments that you told me where it went away, okay? And then always go back to that when that fear comes and look at, like, this went away. This went completely away, so this is definitely TMS. Like, write down those weird moments when the lady said, hey, don't look at your screen, or can you look at your screen? You're like, yeah, I can. All of a sudden, oh, now the fear came, the burning came, now I can't. Those are TMS moments, and those will help you fall back.
Even though it's not me fearing, it's my brain.
Your brain, yeah. And whatever it can.
Because what about all COVID and that? People like me that weren't feared of COVID, they all got smoked by it. And people also, the vaccine. When I noticed that the vaccine and COVID were the same thing, because I've been in long COVID groups since March 2020.
Yeah, get out of those groups, I'll tell you that. Those are the worst.
That was when I realised that, the vaccine, long COVID, the same thing. So, yeah.
I try these groups. I've been kicked out of a couple of histamine intolerance groups, trying to go back and bring people out of this. But it's just because it's so hard for them to believe. I mean, I'm getting through to a few people, but these groups make people so worse. So nobody gets better in these groups. They just get worse because they're reading about other people's symptoms. Literally out of 50,000 people in one hit, there's 50,000 people in one group that can't eat foods. And really? they never get better. Never. I'm like the only one that got better. Because I'm pulling some people out. They are getting better. The people that are, I'm helping, but it's hard. But I post constantly in there. One other thing, here's a few things that you'll learn once you start learning about TMS, how to get over it. One thing is to laugh at it, okay? So when your face starts burning, when you're in these things, you laugh at the brain, because laughing is not a danger. When you fear it and then when the burning comes, you're giving the brain a danger signal, which it's giving you a danger signal, and you're giving one back. But now when the brain's giving you a danger signal of pain, you have to override it and give it a pleasurable signal. Okay, that defeats it, where you have to laugh at it. When people are laughing, they're not in pain, right? When they're laughing, they're in a good mood. So when your brain's sending you this, you start laughing. Just make it up. It's sending a message to your subconscious that you know what's going on. It's not easy, okay? When I ate those foods, I'll relate to this with your light. People would say, well, eat this. You're going to eat this. You're not going to have pain. I'm like, dude, I'm eating this, little bites. I'm having pain. Like, you're like, dude, I'm going outside. I'm having pain. I can't just eat a whole hamburger and think I'm not going to have pain. I'm going to have pain. But you will have it if you fear it. It took me 6 months to get the courage to say, screw it, I'm going to eat. So it would take you, I don't know how much time to say, finally, screw it. I'm going to go outside and I'm going to get over this. And then eventually, with enough repetitions, you got to get your reps in, your brain it'll give up. But it'll go to something else. But the next thing it goes to, it'll be easier to defeat.
Yeah. All right. Well, the only other time when I got out of it was a few months ago, and I was in Thailand, and my partner had to go to Japan, and she dropped the 2-year-old baby with me for this time. And she's like, are you going to be okay? Because she was like my babysitter the whole time too. And I'm like, well, I've got to be. And she goes, yeah, you've got to be. So here I am, get lumped with my 2-year-old son.
You know why? You were in a positive emotional state. Didn't I just tell you about
correct.
that?
I believe
that's why
so.
it went away. You trained.
Well, I had nothing to do but look after this 2-year-old kid.
Yep.
even if it meant that we're inside for a lot of the time during the day until
You
night
got
came.
TMS, bro. I'm glad for you because you're gonna come out of
I'm
this,
glad
man.
too, man.
And
I've known about this for a few months, believing it's TMS, but I keep getting smoked. And then I'm like, when I first figured it, I ran outside to the light for like 5 minutes. I'm like, oh, this is TMS.
Yeah.
And I got pumped, man. I developed these things that aren't possible medically, which is a precancerous acetinic keratosis, which they don't believe that I can feel it come, and it comes the next day, and it doesn't happen in anyone except for these random kids with a thing called xeroderma pigmentosum, which is but it happens to me. And when you said that you're getting boils and that, which is a very physical thing, it's this is a serious thing. And I think the whole world's going to learn about it very soon.
And I'll tell you what, all this stuff I'm telling you, I am not lying about when I say, yeah, I've had that, or try to comfort you, I'm not just comforting you saying I've had that. I've had a lot more than I'm even saying. I'm not even telling you because I'm not trying to give you something, right? And I'm a follower of Jesus, man. I believe in Jesus. So any Christian listening knows that I'm not lying. I'm not a liar. I don't believe in lying. And I'm just I'm helping people. That was it. Trying to get out of this. So when I say I've had these boils, it causes very physical manifestations to the point I had heart issues physically coming up on echocardiograms that my brain was doing. Okay,
that's brain. What I think. Now it makes me think that's what all that pericarditis and that all my friends were getting and that from the boosters, because they're all friends that didn't want the shot anyway, but of course they all got made to get it. And it's like, is this related if it is so physical? And then, of course, it all goes away. My friend, I just started doing this and it all went away. So it's like magic, man.
It's it's because if they don't fear it, okay, if they're like, it's going to go away, then it goes away, right? But if you fear it, all of a sudden, if the brain gives you a couple more exposures and you keep fearing it, the brain will latch onto it. But only so we know what your TMS is from. It's from your kid, because it went away once you were with your kid. Okay, so that's the stuff that you got to work out with a TMS coach. They'll take you through that. So now you know what it is, because when it went
just
away,
fly back to Thailand and live the way I live with him for a month, and then because it got better towards the end of the month there. And around about the 3.5 week mark, I started noticing I wasn't getting burned as much. And then I was back home for a month going, this is incredible.
Yeah, because that deep-seated separation, okay, when you separated, that goes into your subconscious. That's traumatizing to you, even though you don't feel it, like emotionally.
I didn't feel it. Like, I'm a very honest person like yourself, man. And this just wreaked havoc.
You don't feel it. That's why it's TMS. The reason why it's TMS, the pain, is because it won't let you feel it. Okay? For some reason, the brain decides this is safer than the pain of the separation. That's it. Mm-hmm. And
even though it's not.
So that's something that exactly. I'm like, no. I'm like, let me be mad over $60,000 in debt. I'd rather be mad over that. But the brain says no. But at the same time, I was going through super stressful work. I nearly died. I called the suicide hotline 3 times because
you're so.
I mean, I got.
The thing is now, I'm now getting used to living in the dark, where I'm like, fuck, this sucks, but I'm not like that day when I was like, this can't happen to me. Like now, it's just like made me just like, this is my life now. This sucks. Like,
write down that you got better. Is it a son or a daughter? I'm sorry.
A son, 2-year-old
son.
So
you got better with your son. Just write that down. You got better with your son. So that will tell you right there. It is not anything caused from this thing on your face, putting this cream on. If that was a temporary burning that your brain just took psychologically to use to suppress your pain, your emotional pain, okay? That's it.
Mm-hmm.
And so for a fact, now to defeat this is to know that is to get exposure in a positive emotional state, okay? So what I did, I took my wedding day picture. And this is when I had another TMS symptom I'm not even going to mention that was so horrific I was locked in my room. like you, locked in my room. And because I got way worse. I mean, that was nothing. The histamine thing was nothing compared to how bad I got. So I went to the minute I learned about TMS, I went to, there's a good group on Facebook called Tell Me About Your Pain. That's the group I recommend everybody join, because these are the people with thousands of ailments, all working on their TMS, and they're all healing.
Getting better.
Yeah, eventually. Yeah. And with everything you can imagine, they're healing. And literally, you want to say, like, do you have these physical manifest? Go on here. These people have anything you can imagine, they've had, and they've healed from it, from TMS.
So when you're seeing these dermatologists and they're like, geez, you do have this thing, were they like, wow, like, what happened? Did you ever go back to them and say, yeah, I found out what it is, it's this thing that they've never heard of? They would have been like, that's preposterous.
Yeah, they were giving me, I was taking oral steroids, but I was also have steroid cream that I had to rub it on my body every hour, or else I would just be in trauma. And actually, when COVID happened, I wrote a note and sent it to my doctors and said, if I ended up in the hospital with COVID, please rub this cream all over my body, because my fear was to be on a ventilator and not be able to move and be in all this pain, and not be able to itch or scratch or nothing. And so I'm like, rub this on me. That's how bad I was. And I'm free of all this, free of it, absolutely free.
Yeah.
And so I went back to my University of Michigan, one of the best doctors around, an immunologist. I can't even say the word. I went back to her after and told her, because I saw her every single month, because I was on steroids, oral steroids, and those were very serious.
Yeah.
And I was seeing her every month. And she was like, once I came out of this, it was unbelievable. She wanted to talk to my doctor, and they're like 10 minutes apart. The doctor I was seeing, and she never ended up talking to him. And I told her, I said, I'm healed from the migraines. All this other, I'm not even mentioning the other stuff to you because I'm afraid that you'll get it.
In case I catch it.
Yeah. But you'll know, once you defeat this, you'll know that the next thing will come on, but the brain will make you'll be like, Joe, but I actually do have this now. And I'm like, yeah, because you believe your brain knows you have this malformation in your body, and it's using it against you. The brain knows that you've got, the thing is, when they really figured out this TMS, they ran all these people with back pain through MRIs. And then they ran all these people, like thousands of people without back pain through MRIs. And guess what? They had the same backs. They had the exact same backs. Half the people had pain, half the people didn't, with brutal herniations. And they're like, wait a second. Why don't they have the pain? And then they learned it's all TMS. Now, yes, you do have pain when you have a herniation. It's called a danger signal. The brain gives you pain so you don't move and injure it more. So you have very bad pain, but that pain heals. But the people with TMS, the pain does not heal. It keeps going because the brain can use it to suppress an emotion. And sometimes an emotion will happen. The suppression won't even happen for months later till the brain can find something that can sell you to bring you the pain.
Yeah, because you do.
It's not instantaneous. It lies and waits. It waits for something it can sell you.
Yeah, right. So what?
But I too. I'm sorry to interrupt. I too had allergies to soaps and stuff, and creams and soaps. I couldn't shower with anything. Okay, and now I can use all soaps again. So, and it was an instantaneous reaction. I couldn't wear deodorant. I had to put salt on my armpits for 3 years. Okay. So I won't tell you what reaction, but I got, but I'll tell you it was very physical and very painful. So you will get physical manifestations in the body. Yes.
Does anyone get like full-blown anaphylaxis reactions from?
Yeah, I was my throat was closing. They were giving me an EpiPen. I had an never had one in my life, but now I have an EpiPen. I had to carry with me everywhere. And now I got nothing.
That's where I'm at with this. It's a lot more serious, this whole thing, than just it's in your brain. Yeah, it's in your brain, but it's It's because the things are so physical, it's just out of this world. Like,
Yeah.
it's something not ever written about. No one. I had a doctor the other day. He's telling me, "Oh, I had the tiniest bit of a B vitamin tablets, and it turns out I was like depleted in them."
Yeah.
And I'm like, got my body anyway. I can take them like nothing now. Like 3 weeks later, I can take them full doses of them. But yeah, so and I'm down there in the hospital, like going crazy. And I went home and I had all because he kicked me out. He didn't believe me and everything. But I had these blood vessels pop, like all bruises under my skin, man, from it.
Yeah.
So, and then he's like, if I've been a doctor for 14 years, what you're saying makes no medical sense whatsoever.
Yeah.
And I said, yeah, that's okay. That's the first thing you've said that I can agree with. But does that mean it doesn't exist? And he goes, in my medical opinion, no, it doesn't
Right.
exist. So he thinks in his brain, man, in his little brain, that if he doesn't know about it, it doesn't exist. Like,
Right. Well,
wow.
I'll tell you what, one doctor did tell me, he's like, dude, this is one dermatologist. I went to see him twice. He's like, look, he got mad. He's like, I'm telling you, people just don't get food allergies suddenly. And he's like, I've been a dermatologist. He's in his 60s, his whole life. He goes, I've never seen this. It doesn't happen. It's not in the literature. I was so mad when I left there. I had so much anger, not showing it because I'm a Christian, right? I'm not showing it, but I know it's inside me. I had so much pain when I left because it was when I learned TMS was from anger, primarily from anger, okay? Primarily. But other emotions, trauma. People, when their spouse dies, they get TMS. I mean, they're not angry. Deep separations, deep anger, deep things cause TMS. So
yeah, right.
it's just really funny. But hey, can you pause it really quick at all?